So we got Pat Murphy on the line talking Ohio State football, breaking down the roster both offensively and defensively. Now we get to the much maligned linebacker core, which I think by any measurement significantly improved last year. Maybe not to the delight of Ohio State fans and not seeing exactly what they wanted to see, but there's no question it was much better play from that core in 19 than in 2018. Malik Harrison showed us flashes in 18 and then really put together a productive season, but he's gone. And we've got a ton of experience there, certainly with Pete Werner and Tough Borland in particular.
Yeah, Ohio State has 7 upperclassmen at linebacker, which, is ridiculous to think how that even works because, these guys have stuck around and waited their time in an age of college football where that doesn't happen often. You see guys who aren't playing a ton show up in the transfer portal, but for whatever reason, these guys have hung around. Tough Borland, Pete Werner, the surefire returning starters. Both of them are entering their third year as a starter, over 100 career tackles a piece for those guys. So, that maybe not the flashiest of linebackers, maybe not guys that necessarily stand out, but I thought Pete Werner last year in particular was very good. Ohio State talked about having this, bullet position, walkout linebacker type, playing a defensive back at that position. And Pete Werner showed that he's athletic enough to cover tight ends, slot receivers, and Ohio State hardly had to use this borlet role because of what he was able to do. I think he's a very underrated part of their defense because of the versatility he brings. Tough Borland, he's just a leader. I mean, maybe not, the best talent, but he understands how to get guys set up. There's a reason multiple coaching staffs have come in here and continued to start Tough Borland at middle linebacker for Ohio State. He's just kind of that general of the defense and maybe does a lot of things that people don't see when watching the game on television. And now you got to find somebody to replace Malik Harrison. Then there's a number of options. Like I said, 7 upperclassmen, so 5 of them would potentially fit in that role. Baron Browning is a guy who's rotated a lot at middle linebacker over the last 2 years with Tough Borland. He could step into that outside linebacker role that Harrison occupied last year. Browning also lined up some at defensive end, kind of as an edge rusher early on in spring practice. That's something Ohio State may consider. We talked a minute ago about getting that pass rush. He may play a little bit more with his hand down on the defensive line. Taraja Mitchell, Dallas Gant, Tavon Pope, Justin Hilliard, a 5th-year guy. That all of these guys, I think, are going to contribute in some way. I think the interesting thing will be, picking and choosing where Ohio State puts these guys in, what situations. They all bring a little bit different sets of skills. And, I think it like we've seen Ohio State do at other positions, you can rotate a little bit at linebacker and try and get the matchups you want out there. Maybe not as easily as you can on the defensive line or some other positions, but I think with the numbers that they have of guys who have played and have been successful, they're going to try and get creative. And I think it's going to be interesting to see just who fits in where and how much each guy gets to make his impact felt.
The defensive back position has been arguably the best in college football. LSU will make its claims, Florida and others, but Ohio State at DB has been phenomenal. Of course, Jeff Okudah, top 5 pick to the NFL draft. Damon Arnett, another defensive back, is a first rounder to the Raiders. Jordan Fuller went in the NFL draft. I don't think there's any question, Pat, that Shaun Wade is certainly in line as being the next guy. And we saw a significant drop-off to Amir Reep when, of course, Wade was knocked out of the game or suspended and taken out of the game for the targeting call against Clemson. But it all starts with him. If you can fill out the rest of the corners and the safeties and how that looks with 3 NFL-type talents moving on from 2019.
Yeah, it's going to be I feel like we're repeating ourselves with this, but it's going to be tough. Jeff Okudah was the number 1 ranked corner coming out of high school in the 2017 class. He obviously was the top corner selected in the NFL draft. Damon Arnett really shined last year, kind of grew into the player they always hoped he would be, and that resulted in him being a first-round pick. Jordan Fuller was just a very solid safety, could do, they set him up for success. And obviously another NFL draft pick. So replacing those guys is going to be tough. It would have been a lot tougher, though, if Shaun Wade decided to go to the NFL draft, which he could have done. announced in early January he was going to come back. He'll move from the slot corner position to the outside where Okudah was a year ago. And I think he's going to, be very successful with that. I think, he has that diverse skill. I mentioned Okudah was the number 1 corner in the 2017 class. Well, Shaun Wade was the number 2 corner in that class. So, not a huge drop off there, you would hope. And then filling it around him is going to be important. Last year, Ohio State played most of their defensive snaps with 1 high safety, 3 corners on the field. That is the plan from our understanding to do again, but they're going to do whatever defense fits the best. Kerry Combs came back to Ohio State this year after Jeff Hafley left. He's kind of running the defense now, and he's always played with 2 safeties. So you could see some more mixing up of that look. Maybe more press man, which is what they did under Coach Combs previously. Without seeing a ton of spring practice, it's kind of hard to judge how they're exactly going to line up. But for the cornerback spots, you mentioned Amir Reep. He's no longer on the team. Had legal troubles this offseason. So Sevyn Banks, Cameron Brown, and Tyreek Johnson are the names to know at corner. Those guys are going to fight for whichever positions are available alongside Wade. Again, all highly recruited guys. Sevyn Banks and Cameron Brown both got snaps last year. Tyreek Johnson, former 5-star cornerback prospect who hasn't quite yet lived up to his hype. They're hopeful that this is the year that it kind of all comes together for him. And then they have kind of a 4-man possible rotation at cornerback. At safety, Josh Proctor has long been the guy talked about to replace Jordan Fuller. He was his backup last year. Made some big plays. I think the one that stands out to most people is at the end of the Big Ten championship game. He laid a hit right on the sideline. It might have been the last play of the game that you could hear probably from Madison and Columbus. It was so hard. But he's a very solid player. Missed the beginning of spring practice, which opened up the door a little bit for Marcus Hooker, the younger brother of Malik Hooker, who was the All-American safety for Ohio State a few years ago, now plays for the Colts. Those are the 2 guys that are going to contend for, if they play that single high safety spot or if they're going to use 2 safeties, those are the 2 most likely guys to play in those spots. So again, Ohio State has guys who can step in. These guys have to prove that they can do it, and the coaching staff has to trust in them. Like I said, when you lose guys, 3 NFL draft picks out of the secondary, there's definitely going to be questions, but they're confident. These players have waited their turn, and the opportunities now, and fall camp, like I said before, is going to go a long way in determining who fits in and exactly how the whole defense is set up.